My name is Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, and this is my story. My story begins long before I ever knew the weight of a crown. I was born into a world of power, privilege, and destiny, a child of royalty, yes, but also the son of a man whose name echoed across the land. My father, David, the warrior king, the poet, the man after God's own heart. He was a giant in every sense, his victories in battle, his unmatched devotion to God, his songs that could soothe the most troubled souls. But to me, he was simply my father, and from my earliest days, I felt the weight of his legacy pressing upon me. In his shadow, I learned the meaning of strength, of kingship, of faith. His stories shaped my understanding of what it meant to lead. I knew the tales well, how he stood against Goliath with nothing but a sling and his trust in the Lord, how he unified the tribes of Israel under one banner, how he brought the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem dancing with joy before our God. But beneath that glory there was pain. I was born of Bathsheba, the woman whose name still carried whispers. My mother's story was one of love, loss, and controversy, and yet through her, I was destined for the throne. My father's house was one of both greatness and turmoil, his victories tempered by moments of deep personal failure. And as a child, I learned that leadership carried both glory and consequence. Still, from the beginning, I knew one thing. I was chosen. Chosen by my father, yes, but more importantly, chosen by God. I was being groomed for something greater than myself. Little did I know that the path to the throne would be paved with betrayal and blood. As my father's strength faded, so did the unity in his house. Adonijah, my older brother, saw an opportunity. He was strong, handsome, and charismatic, everything a king should be. In his mind, the throne was already his, and why shouldn't it be? He was, after all, the natural heir. He gathered his supporters, threw feasts, and crowned himself king in everything but name. It could have been the end of my story, the end of God's plan for me. But the Lord had other intentions. My mother, Bathsheba, ever watchful, ever wise, saw the threat clearly. She came to my father as he lay weak on his bed, reminding him of the promise he had made, that I, Solomon, would be king after him. With her courage and the intervention of the prophet Nathan, the truth prevailed. My father, though near death, still held the power to anoint a king. He called for me, his youngest, and in the presence of his loyal followers, declared that I would sit on the throne of Israel. But securing the throne was only the beginning. My brother's ambitions could not be ignored, and the whispers of rebellion grew louder. Adonijah, in his pride, could not accept the will of God or my father. He conspired, even after my coronation, seeking to undermine me. The courts were filled with intrigue, betrayal lurking behind every corner. And so I did what was necessary. Adonijah, my own flesh and blood, had to be dealt with. The kingdom demanded stability, and his challenge to my authority could not be allowed to fester. The crown comes with a price, and the price is often steep. The struggle for power is not for the faint-hearted, and in those early days, I learned the brutal reality of kingship. Justice and survival often walk hand in hand. My father's final days were filled with quiet wisdom. His voice, once so commanding, had softened, yet his words carried the weight of a lifetime of experience. I knelt by his side, knowing that soon he would be gone, and it would all be mine. The crown, the kingdom, the responsibility. "Be strong," he said to me, his eyes sharp despite his frail body. "Show yourself a man. Walk in the ways of the Lord your God and follow his statutes." These were his last instructions, his final plea. He spoke not of wealth nor power, but of righteousness. He reminded me that kingship was more than a throne. It was a covenant with the Almighty. A king, he said, must be a servant of the people, a protector of justice, and above all, a man who walks humbly with his God. And then the inevitable happened. David, the giant, the man after God's own heart, passed from this world. In that moment, Israel mourned, and the weight of the kingdom fell fully on my shoulders. I was king now, but more than that. I was a son without a father. The days that followed were not easy. The kingdom was vast, the people many, and though I was young, I knew I had to make my mark. There were still enemies within my own house. Joab, my father's general, a man of blood and ambition, remained a threat. Shimei, who had cursed my father in his time of need, also stood against me. Justice demanded that these men be dealt with, and so they were. I learned early that mercy has its limits, that leadership sometimes requires hard decisions. My father had built a great kingdom, but I would need to secure it with my own hand. The throne is never truly safe, not until the last whisper of rebellion is silenced. With my father's wisdom echoing in my heart, I stepped fully into my role as king. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The real test had yet to come. The question was not whether I could rule, but whether I could rule with the wisdom of God, the justice of David, and the strength of a king. Little did I know, the path ahead would demand more of me than I ever imagined. In the quiet of the night, as I stood alone on the palace balcony gazing over the sprawling city of Jerusalem, I felt the weight of the crown pressing down on me. I was young, too young perhaps, and yet here I was, king over a vast nation, the son of the great David. But no amount of royal blood could drown out the gnawing fear within me. How could I in my youth lead a people so great, a people chosen by God himself? The responsibility was overwhelming, like a storm cloud hovering over my head, dark and heavy. I felt unworthy, unprepared for the sheer magnitude of it all. This kingdom stretched far beyond what I could see, and the decisions I would have to make seemed like towering mountains I had no strength to climb. I knew then that I could not rely on my own wisdom. I needed something greater than myself. And so I went to Gibeon, the place where my father had often worshipped, and I offered sacrifices to the Lord. 1,000 burnt offerings I laid upon the altar. I was not seeking glory or favor from the people. This was between me and God. It was an act of surrender. In that moment, I wasn't Solomon the king. I was simply Solomon, a servant of the Almighty pleading for guidance. My heart bowed low, seeking the face of the one who had established my father's kingdom. And that night, as I slept, something extraordinary happened. The Lord appeared to me in a dream. His voice, oh, how can I describe it? It was like thunder wrapped in peace, a presence that filled my soul with awe. He asked me, "What shall I give you?" It was a question that shook me to my core. Anything. He offered me anything. Power, riches, long life, victory over my enemies. It was all within my grasp, yet none of it seemed important. In that divine moment, I knew what I needed most. I spoke, my heart trembling with sincerity. "O Lord my God," I said, "you have made me king in place of my father David. But I'm only a little child. I do not know how to carry out my duties." My voice faltered as I admitted my inadequacies. How could I lead this people, this vast, numerous people, without the wisdom to do so? And so I asked not for wealth or power, not for long life or the death of my enemies. I asked for understanding. I asked for a discerning heart to govern, to know right from wrong. "Give your servant wisdom," I said, "that I may lead your people in righteousness." There was a silence, a holy pause, as though all of heaven waited for God's reply. And then his voice came again, filled with approval and grace. "Because you have asked this," he said, "and not for long life or riches, nor for the death of your enemies, but for wisdom to administer justice, I will grant your request." But he didn't stop there. No, he went further. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, such as none has had before you, and none shall have after you. And I will also give you what you did not ask for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime no king will compare to you." My heart could hardly contain the wonder of it. I had asked for wisdom, and in his goodness, God had granted me not only wisdom, but wealth, honor, and long life. It was as if the doors of heaven had opened, pouring out blessings I had never imagined. My future was changed in an instant, and though I could not foresee all that would come, I knew that from that moment on, my reign would be marked by God's divine favor. It wasn't long before the first great test of my wisdom came. 2 women were brought before me, weeping and shouting. They stood before my throne, both clutching the same baby, each claiming to be its mother. The tension in the room was palpable. Each woman told her story, and yet there was no way to know who spoke the truth. One child had already died in the night, and now both women laid claim to the living infant. The court waited for my judgment. The people's eyes were upon me, but I remained calm. This was what I had asked for: the wisdom to discern justice, the clarity to see beyond mere words and into the truth. I stood from my throne and issued a command that shocked everyone. "Bring me a sword." The guards hesitated for a moment but quickly obeyed. I could see the unease in their eyes, but I held firm. "Cut the living child in 2, I declared, "and give half to each woman." Gasps filled the room. Surely no one could have expected such a decree. The air grew thick with tension, and the 2 women stood frozen. Then it happened. The true mother's love broke through. She cried out, "No, my lord! Give her the living baby! Do not kill him!" Her heart could not bear to see her child harmed, even if it meant losing him. In that moment, the truth was revealed. I smiled and spoke with assurance. "Do not harm the child. Give the baby to the first woman. She is the mother." The court erupted in awe and praise. My wisdom had pierced through the deception, and justice was done. From that day forward, word of this judgment spread throughout the land. My people marveled at the wisdom God had bestowed upon me. They saw not only a king, but a man who had been given understanding straight from the throne of heaven itself.